Picture this. You are 25, 35, perhaps even 45, and it feels as though you have been drifting through the vast, slate-grey ocean of existence without a compass or a sail. You have a job that satisfies the ledgers and covers your expenses, but it drains your spirit dry by the hour. Your connections feel like shadows, pleasant enough to observe, but lacking the substance and warmth of true intimacy. Your deepest aspirations seem like distant stars, beautiful to gaze upon in moments of quiet longing, yet utterly unreachable. You glance at your reflection in the mirror and barely recognize the person staring back, fatigued, defeated, and profoundly disconnected from the vibrant spark of truly living. This sense of displacement, this feeling of being a ghost in your own life, is not a unique symptom of our modern digital times. It is a deeply human struggle that has echoed through the corridors of history, haunting the halls of marble palaces and the quiet corners of ancient libraries alike. Even those at the very heights of worldly power felt this crushing weight. Marcus Aurelius, once the most powerful person on earth as the ruler of the Roman Empire, privately whispered to his journals that the wisest person avoids misery by not concerning themselves with what others say, do, or think. Despite his immense wealth and absolute authority, he too wrestled with the same hollow emptiness and the paralyzing lack of direction that you may feel today. Seneca, a titan of Roman intellect and one of the wealthiest figures of his era, poured his heart into letters to a friend, revealing internal battles with fear, rage, and the creeping dread that time was slipping through his fingers like dry sand. His realization remains our beacon. Every new beginning arises from the end of something else. He grasped a fundamental law of transformation, that real change cannot happen through simple addition. It starts with the demolition of the psychological patterns and invisible walls that imprison you. And consider Epictetus, who began life in the literal heavy chains of slavery and ended it as one of philosophy's most revered teachers. He knew physical bondage and profound loss intimately, yet he discovered a truth that no tyrant could touch. Freedom is an internal birthright. To him, wealth was not a matter of having much, but of needing little. These three minds uncovered a timeless truth. The route to a meaningful existence follows a deliberate, logical progression. It is not an accident of fate. It is not a stroke of fortune reserved for the lucky few. It is a framework of rebuilding, a reconstruction of the self from the inside out. When your spirit feels uninspired and your thoughts are dull, you start with the mind. When you are weighed down by unhappiness and your body feels like a leaden weight, you address the body. When you feel emotionally numb and your heart lacks its former fire, you heal the heart. Mind, body, heart, in that exact order. This is the sequence of sovereignty. We are about to uncover three ruthless Stoic laws. They are ruthless not because they are cruel, but because they demand total, uncompromising ownership of your reality. They are unrelenting because they force you to abandon your justifications, your comfortable excuses, and the stories you tell yourself to stay safe in your current misery. They are powerful, but only if you are courageous enough to move beyond mere listening and begin the work of embodiment. As we begin this journey, I ask you not to merely consume these words as background noise. This is an invitation to reforge your soul. This script is a blueprint, but you are the mason. Reflect deeply. Take notes. Let the silence between my words allow your own inner voice to rise. If this message speaks to the strength you are trying to build, support this journey. Like this video, share it with a soul who is silently struggling, and subscribe to anchor yourself in this community of seekers. The first step, the internal contract. Before we move to the first rule, you must anchor your intent. Transformation is a contract you sign with yourself. It requires a declaration of war against your own inertia. Practical exercise, the audit of the current self. Before proceeding, take a moment of radical honesty. Find a quiet space and answer these 3 questions in a journal or the notes of your device. What is the primary prison in my life right now? Is it a habit, a relationship, or a belief about my own limitations? If I continue exactly as I am for the next 5 years, who will I become? Be vivid in describing the fatigue and regret of that person. Am I willing to endure the discomfort of growth to avoid the agony of remaining the same? Once you have faced these truths, seal your resolve. In the comments below, type this declaration to signify your entry into the arena. I am the architect of my transformation. By writing those words, you are signaling to your mind that the period of drifting is over. The era of the architect has begun. Rule 1. Reforge the mind. When Marcus Aurelius sat in his imperial tent, surrounded by the cold mists of the Danubian frontier, he was not just a commander of legions, he was a commander of himself. He wrote, "You have authority over your own thoughts, not external conditions. Understand this, and you'll uncover strength." He wasn't speaking of a superficial positivity. He was describing an internal warfare, a daily, hourly battle to prevent the world from dictating his internal state. Right now, if you feel lost or stagnant, it is because your mind has ceased to be your ally. It has become a warden, replaying old narratives of inadequacy, revisiting past failures like a broken record, and convincing you that you are a secondary character in your own story. You have forgotten that while you cannot control the wind, you are the one holding the rudder. To rebuild yourself, we must first reforge the instrument of your perception. The mind, when left untended, grows weeds of anxiety and vines of comparison. But a mastered mind is the ultimate fortress, the inner citadel that remains standing even when the walls of your external life are crumbling. I, the diet of the soul, truth over noise. We often obsess over what we put into our bodies while remaining utterly reckless with what we put into our minds. Your consciousness is an ecosystem, and currently it is likely being polluted by digital junk, the adrenaline of social media conflicts, the hollow envy of curated lives, and the toxic sludge of doom scrolling. If you feed your mind weakness, it will produce a weak reality. Seneca, despite his immense wealth, began each morning not by looking at his ledgers, but by engaging with the timeless thoughts of those who came before him. He knew that the first hour of the day is the rudder of the soul. It sets the direction for everything that follows. Practical exercise, the 7-day mental fast. To reclaim your mind, you must first starve the noise. For the next 7 mornings, you are to engage in a total digital fast for the first hour of your day. No social feeds. Stop consuming the highlights of strangers before you have even greeted yourself. No passive entertainment. Replace the noise of the world with the silence of your own thoughts or the depth of a physical book. The high-quality input. Spend 20 minutes reading a biography of a resilient figure, a work of deep philosophy, or a technical skill you wish to master. Ask yourself, what did I consume this morning? Did it add a brick to my fortress, or did it poke a hole in my shield? 2. The compass of identity, purpose over drift. A directionless mind is like a ship without a rudder. It does not sail toward a destination, it merely drifts until it hits the rocks. Epictetus, the former slave who became a master of men's minds, taught, "First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. Most people fail to change because they focus on what they want to have: money, status, a better relationship, rather than who they want to be. The Stoic knows that true transformation is an ontological shift, a change in your very being. Practical exercise. The re-identification ritual. We must break the old scripts by writing new ones with clinical precision. Stop using vague desires. Instead, use the identity shift method. The old script: I want to be more productive. The new Stoic identity: I am a person who values time as my most precious resource and treats my work with the respect of a craftsman. The old script: I want to be less anxious. The new Stoic identity: I am a fortress of calm, anchored in my own reason and indifferent to the opinions of others. Write your new identity on a card. Read it every morning during your digital fast. Your mind will naturally begin to seek out proof for this new identity through your actions. Third, the dissolution of mental shackles. The strongest prisons are not built of stone, they are built of assent. In Stoicism, assent is the act of agreeing with a thought. When a thought enters your head saying, I am too old to change, or I am not smart enough, it is merely a suggestion. It only becomes a reality when you give it your assent. Marcus Aurelius wrestled with these same shadows. He reminded himself that how he interpreted an event was entirely separate from the event itself. If you are pained by any external thing, he wrote, it is not this thing that disturbs you, but your own judgment about it. Practical exercise, the Socratic interrogation. When a limiting belief arises today, do not ignore it. Interrogate it. Identify the thought, I am failing at life. Challenge the assent. Is this a fact or a judgment? What is the evidence? Am I failing, or am I currently in a season of learning? Withdraw assent. State clearly to yourself, I do not agree with this interpretation. I choose to see this as a test of my character. 4. The daily blueprint of the warrior mind. Philosophy for the Stoic woman aesthetic is not a set of ideas. It is a lived discipline. To reforge the mind, you need a daily audit, a way to ensure the warden doesn't slip back into the cell. Morning, the shielding. During your 20 minutes of reading, write down one mantra of the day, a single sentence from a philosopher that acts as your anchor. Midday, the compass check. Set an alarm. When it goes off, take 3 breaths and ask, is my mind currently serving me, or am I reacting to the world? Evening, the audit. Seneca practiced this religiously. Before sleep, review your day with total honesty. Where did you lose your temper? Where did you let a limiting belief lead you? Where were you virtuous? By doing this, you are teaching your mind that it is being watched. You are asserting your role as the governor of your internal kingdom. As Seneca noted, the clearest evidence of a disciplined mind is the ability to pause where you are and be content in your own company. If you cannot be alone with your thoughts without reaching for your phone as an escape, your mind is not your domain, it is your master. Type this below to seal the first stage of your rebuilding. My mind is my domain, and I rule it. Rule 2. Discipline the vessel, the body. Having established the primary fortification of the mind, we now descend into the physical realm. In the philosophy of the Stoic woman aesthetic, the body is not merely an ornament or a source of pleasure. It is the vessel of the soul. It is the primary instrument through which your will is manifested in the world. To reforge the mind while neglecting the body is to sharpen a sword while allowing the hilt to rot. If your vessel is sluggish, your thoughts will inevitably lack the edge required for true mastery. The Stoics, particularly Musonius Rufus, believed that physical discipline was the laboratory of virtue. If you cannot govern your own limbs and cravings, how can you expect to govern the complex passions of the heart? We move now into the second ruthless law. You must own your physical existence. The temple of action versus the altar of comfort. We live in an age that worships comfort as the ultimate good. We are surrounded by labor-saving devices, instant calories, and climate-controlled environments that whisper to us that ease is our birthright. But the Stoics understood that comfort is a slow poison for the spirit. It breeds a reactionary body, one that cries out at the slightest chill, the smallest hunger, or the lightest exertion. Marcus Aurelius, despite the luxuries available to an emperor, chose to sleep on a simple wooden plank and maintained a rigorous physical regime even while campaigning in the brutal northern winters. He understood that a pampered body breeds a soft mind. When you choose the path of least resistance physically, you are training your mind to do the same mentally. Practical exercise, the practice of voluntary hardship. To rebuild the body, you must reintroduce it to the concept of difficulty. This is not about aesthetic fitness, but about functional sovereignty. Once a week, engage in a ritual of voluntary hardship to remind your body who is in command. The cold exposure. End your shower with 2 minutes of pure, freezing water. Do not gasp. Do not flinch. Observe the body's panic from the stronghold of your mind. You are proving that a sensation is not a command. The intentional fast. Skip a meal once a week. Observe the hunger not as a crisis, but as a biological suggestion. Learn to operate with clarity even when the body feels empty. The threshold of effort. Engage in a physical activity, walking, lifting, or swimming, until you reach the point where your body begs to stop. Then, do exactly 5 more minutes. This is where the spirit overtakes the flesh. Ask yourself, is my body a well-tuned instrument of my will, or am I a passenger in a vessel that is slowly rusting? 2. Fuel as philosophy, temperance in the modern world. What you ingest is a direct reflection of your self-respect. In the Stoic view, gluttony and excess are forms of voluntary madness. When we consume processed junk, excessive sugar, or numbing chemicals to mask our fatigue, we are committing an act of treason against our own reason. We are dimming the light of the mind through the neglect of the gut. To rebuild yourself, you must treat your nutrition as a philosophical choice. Every meal is a vote for the person you are becoming. Practical exercise, the consumption audit. For the next 7 days, before you consume anything that isn't water, ask yourself this one question. Does this nourish my capacity for reason, or does it merely satisfy a craving? If it is fuel, consume it with gratitude. If it is a drug used to escape boredom or stress, withhold your assent. The rule of 3 seconds. Wait 3 seconds between picking up a snack and eating it. In those 3 seconds, the architect regains control from the animal. 3rd, the body as a mirror of the mind. The Stoic woman aesthetic values poise, presence, and carriage. Your physical presence is the first message you send to the world and to yourself. A slumped posture and a downcast gaze are physical manifestations of a defeated mind. Epictetus noted that the way a person walks and stands reveals the state of their soul. If you want to change your internal state, you can begin by forcing a change in your external form. Practical exercise, the sovereign stature. Throughout your day, practice the alignment. 1. Imagine a silver thread pulling you upward from the crown of your head. 2. Drop your shoulders, open your chest, and take up your rightful space in the world. 3. Maintain this posture, especially when you feel stressed or criticized. By holding the body in a position of strength, you signal to your nervous system that you are not under threat. You move from the defensive crouch of a reactor to the open stature of an actor. 4. The physical review. At the end of your day, as you perform your mental audit, add a physical component. Did I move my body with purpose today? Did I treat my fuel with temperance? Did I succumb to the siren song of comfort? Or did I seek out the sharpening stone of effort? Remember, you are rebuilding a temple. The mind is the priest, but the body is the stone. If the stone is crumbling, the priest has no place to stand. Type this below to commit to your physical sovereignty. My body is my instrument, and I tune it with discipline. Rule 3. Harmonize the heart. We have fortified the mind and disciplined the vessel. Yet, even with a sharp intellect and a resilient body, one can remain hollow if the internal compass, the heart, is left in a state of discord. In the Stoic woman aesthetic, the heart is not a place of wild, unbridled sentimentality, nor is it a cold void of apathy. Instead, it is the seat of equanimity. It is the alchemical chamber where raw emotion is transformed into refined wisdom. To rebuild the heart is to move from being a reactor to being an observer. Most people allow their internal state to be dictated by the weather of their external lives. They are joyful when praised, devastated when criticized, and anxious when the future is uncertain. This is emotional servitude. The third ruthless law demands that you reclaim the keys to your emotional kingdom. You must fix the heart, or you will forever be lost. I. The mirror of attachment, finding the internal anchor. The Stoics taught that almost all emotional suffering stems from a single error, placing our good in things we do not control. If your heart is attached to your reputation, your bank account, or the shifting moods of a partner, you have handed over your peace of mind to the whims of fortune. You are living in a state of emotional fragility. To rebuild the heart, you must perform a radical audit of your attachments. Epictetus famously said, "With regard to everything that is source of delight, or may be useful, or is loved with deep affection, remember to tell yourself what its nature is." He meant that we must love the world deeply, but with the understanding that everything is on loan from the universe. Practical exercise, the emotional audit. Sit in stillness and identify the 3 external things that currently have the most power over your mood. Visualize the loss. Imagine with clinical detail those things being taken away. Not to induce fear, but to realize that your core self, the architect, remains intact even in their absence. Move the anchor. Mentally shift your sense of success from the outcome to the effort. Instead of, "I need them to love me," anchor your heart in, "I will be a person who loves with integrity." By moving your anchors from external soil to internal character, you become emotionally unshakable. You can still enjoy the world, but you no longer depend on it for your soul's survival. 2. The alchemy of perception, turning lead into gold. The heart is often weighed down by lead, the heavy emotions of resentment, regret, and envy. We carry the ghosts of past missteps and the shadows of future anxieties. The Stoic heart, however, practices amor fati, the love of one's fate. This is the ultimate emotional alchemy. It is the ability to look at a painful event and say, "This too is fuel for my growth." Practical exercise, the reframing ritual. The next time an event causes a sting in your heart, a rejection, a setback, or an insult, stop before the reaction takes hold. Identify the raw emotion. My heart feels heavy with rejection. Apply the alchemical lens. Ask, how is this exactly what I needed to build my resilience? What does this rejection free me from? What does it force me to improve? The heart's decree. State firmly, I do not just accept this, I embrace it as the forge of my character. When you stop fighting reality, the heart stops bleeding energy into resistance. You find a strange, quiet power in the realization that nothing can happen to you that cannot be used for your own evolution. Third, the practice of compassion without compromise. A common misconception is that Stoicism creates coldness. In truth, the Stoic heart is a reservoir of profound compassion. Because you are no longer needing things from others to feel whole, you are finally free to give to others without expectation. You love others not because you are lonely, but because it is the nature of a virtuous human to do so. Marcus Aurelius began each morning by reminding himself that he would meet ungrateful, violent, and treacherous people. He didn't do this to become cynical, but to prepare his heart so that their darkness would not extinguish his light. He chose to be a source, not a reflection. Practical exercise. The view from above. When someone triggers a feeling of anger or wounded pride in you, perform this mental expansion. Visualize your own heart and its current turbulence. Expand your view to see the other person. See their hidden fears, their childhood wounds, and the scripts they are blindly following. Expand further until you see the city, the earth, and the cosmos. From this height, the slight against your ego becomes infinitesimal. You find it easier to offer forgiveness, not because the other person deserves it, but because your heart is too vast and too precious to be occupied by the smallness of a grudge. Fourth, the heart's evening benediction. As you close your day, your final review must be of the heart. Where did I let an external event steal my joy? Did I anchor my heart in my own actions or in the reactions of others? Did I practice amor fati, or did I waste my spirit wishing for a different reality? The heart is the final frontier of rebuilding. If the mind is the architect and the body is the stone, the heart is the fire in the hearth. Keep it clean. Keep it focused. Keep it anchored in the internal. Type this below to seal the third pillar of your transformation. My heart is my sanctuary, and I anchor it in virtue. We have journeyed through the 3 ruthless laws of transformation. We have reforged the mind to act as a vigilant governor. We have disciplined the body to serve as a resilient vessel. And we have harmonized the heart to remain anchored in the stillness of virtue. But these are not merely isolated pillars. In the Stoic woman aesthetic, the ultimate goal is integration, the seamless alignment of thought, action, and feeling. When these 3 strands are woven together, they create a rope that no worldly storm can snap. To be integrated is to live without a mask. It is to reach a state where your private thoughts, your physical habits, and your emotional responses all point in the same direction. This is the definition of eudaimonia, the Stoic concept of human flourishing. It is not a destination you reach and then inhabit. It is a way of walking. I, the symphony of the sovereign self. Imagine a life where there is no friction between who you are and who you want to be. When the mind is clear, it commands the body without struggle. When the body is disciplined, it provides the energy the mind requires. When the heart is anchored, It provides the peace that allows both to function with grace. Most people live in a state of internal civil war. The mind wants to work, but the body is sluggish. The heart wants peace, but the mind is obsessed with the opinions of others. This friction is what causes the drifting we spoke of at the beginning. Integration is the end of that war. It is the moment the architect, the vessel, and the sanctuary become one. Practical exercise, the daily alignment audit. At the end of each week, sit in silence and perform a high-level review of your integration. Grade yourself not on success, but on consistency, alignment of mind. Did my thoughts today reflect the person I am becoming, or did I give my assent to old shadows? Alignment of body. Did I treat my physical form as a tool of my purpose, or as a slave to my comfort? Alignment of heart. Did I keep my emotional anchors internal, or did I hand my peace over to the world? Where there is a gap, do not respond with guilt. Guilt is a reaction. Instead, respond with adjustment. The Stoic path is one of constant, gentle correction. 2. The legacy of stillness. As you rebuild yourself, you will notice a strange phenomenon. The world around you will begin to change. When you stop reacting, people will stop trying to provoke you. When you move with physical poise and mental clarity, opportunities that were once unreachable begin to gravitate toward you. But the greatest change is your impact on others. By becoming an integrated, self-governed individual, you become a living philosophy. You don't need to preach Stoicism, you simply need to embody it. Your stillness in a crisis, your temperance in a world of excess, and your poise in the face of insult will act as a lighthouse for others who are still lost at sea. This is your legacy, not what you leave behind, but the strength you demonstrate while you are here. 3. The eternal beginning. Seneca reminded us that every new beginning arises from the end of something else. Today, the version of you that was defined by drifting, fatigue, and reaction has come to an end. But do not be deceived, rebuilding is not a singular event. It is a daily recommitment. There will be days when the mind grows foggy, when the body craves the old comforts, and when the heart feels the sting of attachment once more. The difference now is that you have the tools. You have the sacred pause. You have the belief audit. You have the rule of 3 breaths. You are no longer a victim of circumstance. You are a practitioner of life. The final practice, the morning vow. Every morning, as you finish your digital fast and your deep reading, look at your reflection and state your vow for the day. This is the ultimate integration of mind, body, and heart. My mind is my domain. Mind. My body is my instrument. Body. My heart is my sanctuary. Heart. I am the architect. Integration. Closing words. You are capable of more than you have ever imagined, but that capability is only realized through the ruthless application of discipline. The drifting has ended. The architecture of your new life has begun. If this journey has struck a chord within you, do not let the fire go out when this video ends. Like this message to signal your growth. Share this video with one person who is currently in the drift. Subscribe to continue walking this path of ancient wisdom and modern strength with us. And most importantly, leave your mark in the comments one last time. Tell the world and yourself which pillar you will refortify tomorrow morning. Is it your mind, your body, or your heart? Your evolution starts right now, right here. With this choice, go. Show the world what lives inside you. Welcome to the transformation. I pause. I reflect. I rebuild.